I don't know about you, but politics is starting to depress me. It's like Trump is incredibly strong, which, he's obviously the favorite to win the nomination. He's neck and neck with Biden. That New York Times poll showed him tied with Biden, which one would think would default to the Republicans when the actual voting happens, since Republicans tend to underpoll a bit. However, by the time we actually get to the voting in November 2024, Trump's going to have probably 4 indictments around him. In the news every day will be things like Jan 6th, which independents do not want to hear about, do not support, cannot forgive. So the 4 more years of Joe Biden in this White House, Clay, I'm not going to say the country can't survive it, because that's what lefties talk like. Honestly, but I deeply worry for the country. I deeply worry for what we're going to do if we have 4 more years of that man in the White House and his policies.
I deeply worry that he wouldn't survive and Kamala Harris would end up president, and she would be the most unqualified, just frankly disaster of a president we've ever seen. And my
she would be the Harriet Miers of presidents. Remember how Bush tried to nominate Harriet Miers for the Supreme Court, and she was so unqualified he had to withdraw it? That would be Kamala Harris.
My concern is, what happens if China invades Taiwan and you have President Kamala Harris trying to decide how to deal with that kind of geopolitical struggle?
Oh my God.
I feel like Kamala Harris represents, and there's a huge part of the book where I discuss this, the failure of diversity in general. Diversity, in my opinion, is not a strength. Now, diversity of thought is a strength because it strengthens your ability to actually reach the right decision. You practice law, Megyn. The luxury that I feel like I have, and I bet you feel like you have, is sometimes you had a client and you're like, man, this is a really big bad side of the case to have, right? If you're a lawyer, you'll look at it and you'll be like, man, I'd a lot rather argue the other side than this one, but you're an advocate and you have to advocate for what you are being paid to advocate for. I feel like so much of what we do is we look at all the facts out there and we just say, okay, I'm going to pick the side of which that I'm going to advocate for and apply my legal training as a result to make a strong argument for why my side is the right one. And I feel like Kamala Harris represents this cosmetic diversity idea that everything needs to be perfectly representative of the United States. In fact, there's an excerpt up on today on foxnews.com making this argument. Megyn, the men's basketball team's 12 black guys. That's not remotely diverse relative to the United States population, right? Only 6% or so of the United States population is black men. But those 12 black guys happen to be the best 12 players in all of America, right? If we said they need to perfectly represent America and we wanted them all to be men, we'd have to fire like 10 black guys. We'd have to put white guys, Hispanic guys, and Asian guys on the U.S. men's basketball team, and we'd be a lot worse. But it would be perfectly representative of the nation's racial diversity. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't want that. I want the meritocracy, right? Kamala Harris is, to me, a perfect approximation of cosmetic diversity. She's gotten where she is, not because of her talent, but because of her race and her gender. And she's being exposed because she's been promoted above her talent level, frankly, and her ability to do the job.
Roger Ailes used to call it failing upward. That's what she's doing. She's failing upward. Yeah. She's not qualified for these jobs, and she certainly isn't qualified to be president of the United States. But the guy who's in there isn't all that qualified to be president of the United States. And have you seen now, like they've embraced Bidenomics, and the New York Times podcast, The Daily, had this celebratory discussion of Bidenomics today, talking about how inflation is going down and how Biden's really owning it now. It's as his economy, and he's really trying to change the narrative on this before November 2024 because it's the thing around his neck, right? It's the albatross. Even the New York Times poll last week showed, I think it was 20% of the country feels somewhat good about the economy. It's the vast majority, some 70% say the economy's a nightmare, and we think it's poor, we think it's going terribly. And almost, I think it's 65% don't believe in the direction of the country right now. So he's trying to change it. And one of the ways in which he's trying to change the narrative, it's totally political, Clay, is he's now posting this infrastructure project is thanks to President Biden in places like Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's going to be all swing states, mark my word. They're not going to do that in California or New York. It's going to be all swing states. And you and I are paying for this shit. Why am I paying for the Joe Biden celebratory sign? For what? For an infrastructure plan that helped drive up the inflation that I'm now supposed to be giving him credit for helping drive back down a little? Like, how did we get to the inflation to begin with, President Biden? Why do I have to pay for your damn sign when I can't pay for my milk? That's what most Americans are asking.
Yeah, and you asked, I'm incredibly concerned about what's going to happen in 24. And Megyn, I think it's your audience that's going to end up deciding this election. Because when I go out with my wife and her friends, there are a lot of people, women in particular, suburban women, moms, they just don't like Trump personally. And what I would say is you have to give up on personal, right? You have to give up on the personal and just look at the policy, because Biden's policies are disastrous for your kids and for your for your community and for your economy. And I also think a part of this, and Trump may be able to address this better than a lot of Republicans can. Megyn, I've heard you talk about this. I think Republicans have to talk about abortion. And I think they have to talk about abortion in a way directly to address these suburban moms. My theory, and look, I understand people have very serious opinions on this, but when I look at the data, there are about 10% of the population that says there should be no abortions for rape, incest, life of the mother, that stuff. Like, that's about 10% of the population. Overwhelmingly, that's Republican. There's about 10% of the population that says you should basically be able to have an abortion up to the 9th month. And that is overwhelmingly Democrat. The rest of us, and I'm in this camp, are somewhere in the 80%. We're somewhere in the middle. And I bet almost everybody listening to us is somewhere in that 80%. Republicans need to be able to address this issue, because I think the overturning of Roe v. Wade has created a huge opportunity that Democrats exploited in 2022 that Republicans haven't addressed. And the idea is that they are selling, and it's effective, hey, if your 14 or 15-year-old daughter gets pregnant, Republicans are going to make her have to have that baby. And that is, I think, for a lot of moms out there and dads, but particularly for moms, that is a very resonant fear that Democrats are exploiting. And frankly, I think Republicans are doing a really bad job of addressing it. And I think it may.
They're afraid to talk about it. Yeah, they're afraid to talk about it. I think you have to address it. I think you have to address it. And I think you have to take it head on. If you are a business of one, you're probably killing yourself for everything you can earn. So when you're paying a CPA, a bookkeeper, payroll, and other admin services, every dollar out is so painful. Not only does your admin work cost an arm and a leg, it also takes you away from your own billable hours. There's got to be a better way. And guess what? There is. It's called Collective.com. Collective was built specifically for businesses of one that are making over $60,000 in profit each year. Collective handles all of the stuff that used to cost a pile of money for just a fraction of the cost. Plus, if you are set up as an LLC or just a sole proprietorship, Collective can elect your S-Corp status. Collective members save an average of $10,000 per year on taxes, and a Collective membership pays for itself within just a few months, not to mention it's 100% tax deductible. The price goes up on September 1st, so lock in your lower rate for a full year today and get an extra $100 off when you go to collective.com/Megyn right now. A team of experts to handle your business formation, accounting, bookkeeping, payroll, and business taxes at a small fraction of the cost. Plus, save potentially thousands of dollars each year on taxes. That's collective.com/MEGYN. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.